What's up, guys? Welcome to this tutorial, Nature from Protoculture, and more recently Shadow Chronicles, which is my new Psytrance alias. We're going to get this tutorial started in just a sec. I just wanted to run over a few basics and the project setup. Firstly, I'm working on an ultra-wide screen, so there are times that the right-hand side will be slightly cut off. Don't worry about that, though. It's basically just the file browser on the right-hand side that I'm using. They've added a new file browser now, which doesn't actually go through media library, which has been bugged for me for ages. It does sometimes take ages for it to find samples, so this new direct browser is a big help now. It's basically just a file browser, so if there's anything important on the side, I'll bring it over so that you guys can see it, but don't stress too much about that. We're in Cubase 9.5, and there's a bunch of new features that I'll be using in this project. Just a quick project setup. We've set our tempo to 138, which is what we're going to be working at. I always, at the beginning of projects, go to project setup, just make sure that everything is correct here. 32-bit float, it's not necessary, like 24-bit should be fine normally, but I leave it at 32-bit float just because when I do Final Master, I like to bounce out at 32-bit just in case there are any peaks. You can actually push the headroom further than you normally would with just a 24-bit file. So we'll leave it as that. Panning law -3 dB is what I normally work at. It's the most natural sounding one for me, or -4.5. But we'll leave it at that for now. I just wanted to quickly run through a couple of keyboard shortcuts. I work primarily in the arrange page now, since they've redone all the side, all the little panels on the side. Now they've added these zones, so you'll see them switching around quite often. I have a bunch of pretty handy little shortcuts which I've made, custom shortcuts. So I have them mapped to the tilde key. Tilde will bring up the bottom zone, which has your editors, your MIDI editors, etc., audio editors, mix console, sampler controls, chord pads. I don't use all that much, but that's there as well. Then shift tilde will get rid of the left side in case I want a little bit more space if I'm not using the inspector. And then control tilde will drop out the right channel, the right zone, which is the control room meters, and the file browser, the new file browser. Previously it was just this instruments section. They've added this file browser now, which is what I'm using most of the time. VSTIs, I don't worry too much about that, because I never edit them from there. I just edit them directly in the project here. So we can get rid of that for now. Another thing, Cubase now has got a adaptive zoom. If you look over here on the quantize setup, you can use quantize or you can use adaptive zoom, which is kind of like Ableton. As you zoom in, you'll see the quantize changes to suit whatever you're working in. I use it sometimes, but I still use the standard quantize, and I have the QWERTY keys mapped to quantize settings because that's something I use quite often. So you can see here the quantize setting over here. I can just quickly scroll through those just using the left-hand keys. So 1, 4, 16, 32, so on. Also have quantize controls mapped to Control Q, and Control Shift Q will be quantize length. When we have audio files, I have a new feature called destructive effects. You used to be able to go to plugins and then add effects directly onto an audio file like this. Now you have this new function where I've custom mapped it to D, so you can get this window pop up, and you can add plugin chains now offline, and once you're happy with them, right click and then make them permanent. So this adds the effects directly to an actual audio file, not to the channel. We'll be doing a bit of that later as well. Lastly, B will bounce a an audio file, and then I also have the render in place custom keys as well. We can actually do that now as well. You want to make sure that this is all set up as well at the beginning of your project. So I have the setup map to, well, Command tilde will be render in place. Command Alt tilde will bring up the setup window. So I like to work with it like this, as one event, not block events, because then it'll bounce a separate one for each little block that you are rendering. I'm going to show you quickly if we have blocks like this. I don't want them running through the master because I do work with a limiter at times, and then if you're bouncing through the master, you will actually be limiting the files as well, and I don't want to be doing that because the limiter is just a placeholder until we actually get around to the mastering. So we have it set as channel settings. We have a tail, put it in here. I don't always need that on, but we'll leave it there for now. It's 2 bars basically. You can adjust that as you need to. We're working with 24-bit files. I don't know, the project's 32. We can actually change it to 32-bit float. Path will be the same directory that we're working in currently. And naming I've just kept locked. I'm not too fussed about that. Lastly, I want, well, it's not giving me the option to do it now, but I have this mixed down to one audio file. That is in case you are bouncing multiple channels at the same time. We can actually duplicate this if we have them all selected. It now gives us that option to mix down to one audio file. So at times I'll just render in place, and you'll see what happens is these 4 that I've selected will just be rendered down to a file there, and it's added 2 bars of tail to it as well. Obviously, there's nothing in there because those were blank files. Okay, cool. So that's pretty much the gist of it. We'll get stuck in and start with our kick and bass. I do often with the protoculture stuff kind of start with a melody by the Cytrons. I kind of find, that it's so centered around the kick and bass, so I often lay that down first and then kind of go from there. Cool. So we'll get stuck into that next.